Maria, to change things up, I want to kick off today's episode.
Be my guest.
Well, it's because I've been listening to an episode of one of my favorite podcasts after News in Slow Spanish, of course.
Of course.
News in Slow Spanish, our parent podcast. This is Just a Spanish Phrase, the companion to News in Slow Spanish.
So your two favorite podcasts are Just a Spanish Phrase, News in Slow Spanish, and then on third comes this one.
Exactly. Lower down the list, but a great podcast. It's called Ologies. By the way, we have no connection to this. I just really like Ologies.
This is honest opinion and honest recommendation, not sponsored.
And I was listening to an episode recently about collapsology.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a really, encouraging, optimistic topic. Literally the study of the collapse of societies, of civilization. Of course, you'd expect to listen to really depressing things, but I heard something that was kind of hopeful. And it's this idea that even in the face of growing conflict, of wars, of problems rising all around the world, that people might think of that as a sign of collapse. But in fact, and this is the opinion of the expert that was being interviewed, Dr. Joseph Tainter, that these are actually a sign of increasing complexity, which is the opposite of societal collapse. Now, it's still a problem. You have war here, you have conflict. These are still problems to deal with, but it's not the sign of collapse, rather of increasing complexity.
Can we talk about Taylor Swift wedding?
What?
Or, I don't know, the show Love Island or Temptation Island?
I'm talking about, societal collapse. María, te estás yendo por los cerros de Úbeda.
Oh, that's our expression today. That's why you wanted to talk about the collapse of society, artificial intelligence, earthquakes, ice.
You got me. I definitely inserted something I knew you wouldn't want to talk about.
No, I don't. Me quiero ir por los cerros de Úbeda. Thank you. I'm out in the cerros de Úbeda. I'm not coming back.
So that's our phrase for today, in case you were wondering. On Just a Spanish Phrase, Irse por los cerros de Úbeda. You want to take a stab at translating that literally?
It's pretty much beat around the bushes. Literally, it means to go to the hills of Úbeda, a place.
Yeah.
But it means, and I don't know if this happens to you or if it did to you listeners or to you, Renzo. During the pandemic, I was absolutely unable to read or write anything. And then right now, these days, with the earthquake in Venezuela, artificial intelligence, ice killing people, the war resuming in Iraq and Ukraine, everything, I'm like, I'm unable to read, I'm unable to write, I'm unable to watch any deep movie. I just want to beat around the bushes, irme por los cerros de Úbeda. I want to escape. I want to think of something completely different because it's much more than what I can take.
I think it's completely natural. I go through the same thing. I'm sure many of our listeners have experienced this, where you turn to like something that gives you comfort, something that's just pure entertainment instead of diving into the really difficult topics.
And that's why every time somebody tries to talk to me about artificial intelligence, for example, I really went into the rabbit hole, listening to interviews of the major players. And now the algorithm feeds me that. And I'm like, nope, I don't want to talk more about the collapse of society because of artificial intelligence, because of wars, etc. So, yes, I'm going to los cerros de Úbeda.
Exactly. So, like you said, an equivalent expression for that in English is to beat around the bush. And what we're saying with that is that you are intentionally avoiding the main issue, the topic, by going off tangent, by going into a, wildly different topic or maybe slightly related topic, but in general, avoiding the main thing.
Yeah, which I did on purpose, of course, for this podcast, because that's the sentence we're talking about. But I did find very interesting what you were saying about that podcast about collapse of society being maybe an opportunity. And it reminds me of a book I'm actually reading right now after the earthquake in Venezuela. It's called Paradise in Hell, and how disaster has given the opportunity to many societies to rebuild themselves and to reinvent themselves. And this is by an author that I admire called Rebecca Solnit. And she interviewed people post-Katrina, post-9/11. She actually documented a lot. She found testimonies of people that survived the San Francisco earthquake. So, and it's fascinating because in the news, all you hear is the story of trauma. But in parallel to those stories, there's a lot of resilience, of rebuilding, of she calls it utopias born from disaster. And it's how, when you lose everything, when money doesn't have a meaning anymore, you go back to the values of altruism, cooperation. You talk to your neighbor and you help your neighbor in distress without asking that neighbor, who did you vote for? What's your political party? What is your... yes, there is some... You see the worst in humanity, but it's the minority. The vast majority of humanity, and that has been documented again and again in situations of disaster, show their better face.
I love that. And you know what? I'm going to connect it back to this episode I was telling you about, because something that I really liked was Dr. Tainter defined collapse. You know, you think the word collapse, it's by definition negative, or at least the negative feelings that I feel when I think of collapse. But from a very scientific point of view, he defined collapse as the rapid simplification of complex systems. So if you think about the Roman Empire collapsing, you had vast networks and of trade and roads and taxation, and suddenly the state, the apparatus that kept all that complexity going, kind of crumbles, but you're still left with the day-to-day life of people living in the country and growing their own food. And for some of them, for many of them, the system was collapsing, but the opportunity to restart, to form newer, smaller communities was like what you're saying.
So they're pretty much saying the same, because what is more of a collapse than an actual natural disaster? You know, collapse of buildings, tsunamis, etc. Once you're turned to shambles, you have no other option but you need your neighbor to reconnect, to rebuild. So we're running out of time, unfortunately. Obviously, we can talk about this for ages. But
nos estamos yendo por los cerros de Úbeda.
Yes, we forgot this is a podcast about idiomatic expressions.
So let's give them back on track, something about the origin of this expression, because I love this one. So, irse por los cerros de Úbeda, as you mentioned, literally translate to wander or go around, walking around the hills of Úbeda, which is a real place in Andalusia in southern Spain. And this expression dates back to the 13th century. So around the year 1233, during the Reconquista, so the reconquest of the reformation of the Kingdom of Spain, King Fernando III was laying siege to this town in southern Spain called Úbeda. And one of his captains was supposed to deliver an important message or join the battle. And he went missing. He went missing for days. And when he finally reappeared after the battle was actually done, they asked him, where had you been? And he said he got lost wandering in the hills.
Yeah, right. In the tavern, probably.
Maybe, exactly. So that's what happened, that the phrase irse por los cerros de Úbeda, just like this captain had done, became synonymous with kind of avoiding your responsibilities or even cowardice. But over time, it evolved, as all expressions do, to be more about going off topic.
Okay. And just so you know, this is very, very common expression in Spain, but it's not as common as in Latin America.
Yeah, I've heard it mostly from my Spain Spanish friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed today's show. We ran out of time already. That was fast.
Thank you for listening to us week over week and allowing us to irnos por los cerros de Úbeda, because our conversations often do. But that's,
like
I think,
every
what
good
makes them
conversation.
fun. Yes, exactly.
All
That's
right.
what makes them fun.
And we'll see you next week.
Hasta la próxima.